She just destroyed him. Now, I'm sure he destroyed her, but here they are, battling it out on social media. Ugly! This thing about men dominating women and abusing women and yelling at women and hurting women and slapping women, that's unforgivable. There's no place in the Christian life for that. Shaming people on social media. We have a whole obligation learning and teaching boys to have the right fight in them, not the wrong fight in them. Isaiah 5 verse 20 says, watch, you've heard this, you know this, ready? Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put forth sweet and sweet for bitter. Listen, I'm going to tell you what the right fight is. If you got your kid in a public school and they want the kid to come on Friday of a certain day in the summer for one of their classes dressed as a girl, that's the fight to get into. You don't let your boy go to an activity that forces them to dress like a girl. That's happening. You got to know what to fight. Stand up at a baseball game, guys are drinking beer behind you, and they're getting all over. Oh, tough guy, tough Christian man. Hey man, knock that off. No, that's not the fight to get into, because it ain't not going to end well. Anything today you know are being called good, but you know biblically it's not good. That's the fight to get into. I don't know. I don't know what's going on in these public schools. You know they're teaching sex education in kindergarten? Did you all hear that?
Yeah. That's sad.
Do you know they're teaching diversity training very early on in public school systems? You know what diversity training is? It's code work for accepting homosexuality as an absolute rite of passage. It's a completely legitimate life. And how dare you have a Christian difference of opinion? Do you know that right now in the Coast Guard and all the military branches, God forbid, if you're working with a homosexual in your unit, and you say, maybe you guys get into a discussion and you say, I just, to each his own. I mean, do what you want to do, but biblically, my opinion of your lifestyle is that it's not of God. Do you know that if you make a statement like that you can go ahead and now be subject to UCMJ and what do they call it? Diversity training. Brothers and sisters, we got to get into the right fight. Do you know you cannot watch a TV show today? You cannot watch a TV show today or a movie today that there isn't a homosexual in it. So what are we going to do? We're going to continue to watch the shows? I'm talking to men here. I can't even watch a commercial anymore. Chevrolet, big trucks, Chevy, Silverado, and there's a guy and they're holding hands in the sunset. Say, Pastor, you need to get off that. I'm not going to get off that. Because if I get off it, then what's... If I get off of that and I don't teach it and preach it, then we're all going to think that, well, we'll just continue to go down that road, that path. And I guess it's okay. And by the way, I will be very kind to any homosexual, very kind to them. I will not put my finger in their face and preach to them. Are y'all with me?
Yep.
Number one, it's not going to do any good. I want to show them love. I want to show them, though I don't have to agree with you, you're welcome. Are you with me? Men will never make good fathers until they're willing to learn to fight. And I'm saying, Johnny, come here. Let me tell you, if they're mean to you, you take this hand here and you... Man, that is... I think we should have self-defense. But I just think that this culture is really pushing the envelope on what true manhood is. What true manhood is. And it's not something that I grew up in. Because I'm a born-again Christian now, and I know that the true fight is what God teaches me to fight. I got to fight against lying. You know what? I might just stay on one point here this morning. I got to understand that my fight is against lying. I'll get off the cultural thing for a minute. I'll get into the individual thing that I have to fight for. I have to fight against jealousy, wrong jealousy, narcissistic jealousy. I got to learn what to fight for and teach my son, teach my church, and teach my men what to fight for. Here's what you fight for. You're tired and you don't feel like going to church. Bless God, fight that man and get to church. Number two, Joshua learned not just to fight, but he learned to be wise. I'll read to you for sake of time. Exodus 17. Oh, you're there. Look at verse number 14. And the Lord said unto Moses, write this for a memorial in a book and rehearse it in the ears of Joshua, for I will utterly put out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. Good fathers need to have learned wisdom that comes through our forefathers in history. Good fathers pray about and make good decisions as their families depend upon them. Do you know that wisdom must be rehearsed? You must rehearse it. If you're going to play a guitar for a church special, you just don't come up not playing all week, you rehearse it. I remember when I was, you look in a mirror, and some of us, we need to rehearse in the mirror certain things. You need to have a time of saying no in the mirror. So you go into the mirror and you say no. You learn how to smile. You know, somebody talked, this week, one of my family members said, I figured out that I'm not smiling right. I said, what do you mean? We're on our vacation, a little mini vacation, and we're just chatting. Well, I don't smile right. I said, what do you mean? Well, I was holding back I was trying to clench my teeth and smile, and then I found out just in the last month that if I just smile normally and just show my front teeth, it's okay. And I like that look. And I'm like, inside I'm like, duh. But to that person, a member of my family, it was like an epiphany. It was like, man, I get it. And now they do it all the time. So they learned something and they applied it and they rehearsed it. They looked in the mirror and they kind of checked things out. And so Joshua was a father that had to learn from wisdom from what his predecessors did. And maybe in your case, you don't have a family member that was a godly example. Well, now you can be one as a man. Wisdom has to be rehearsed, reviewed, practically applied. Here's how you practice wisdom. Ready? Look at a homeless person. Look at a home full person. That's my word. Just made it up. So a home less, a home full. You look at someone who has you look at the lamas, or you look at the sannyasins. You look at anybody that has a home that God has blessed them with, not leaving anybody out here that's renting right now, but you just, for illustration's sake, you say, homeless, home full, and you get wisdom. You see it, you think about it, and you're like, well, what's the difference? What happened here with someone pushing a buggy and someone up here? You see things. You allow to be influenced positively, and you avoid those things that are. And Joshua exactly remembered what he saw in the wilderness for those 40 years. Hey, you're in this church right here. There are many that are not in this church right here, and their families are ruined. I can name you names right now. I won't. Go ahead, fall out of church. Man, be wise men here today, and just look at the last few 5 or 10 years. Rehearse it. Look upon it. Dwell on it. Joshua was a man who learned how to make the right wars. I'm not going to go ahead and I'm going to see something on social media, which I don't even, I'm hardly on it. And I'm going to look at something and I'm going to jump to conclusions and I'm going to get upset and I'm going to make some phone calls and I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to insert myself in someone else's life like that. I'm just not going to do that. I'm going to know where to pick my battles. And I'm going to look and remember and have wisdom. And I beg of you, if you're a man in this room, to do the same thing. Number 3. I'll just get to maybe one more. Joshua learned to work. In Exodus, he learned to war. Joshua learned to war. Joshua learned to be wise. You know, men in this room, sometimes it's better to go ahead and not say something than to say something. Man, you got to pick your wisdom. Men, what you say, especially to a woman or a young lady, it is completely impacting. But Joshua learned to work. Exodus 24, verse 13. Verse 13. And Moses rose up, Exodus 24, verse 13, and his minister Joshua, and Moses went up into the mount of God. Good fathers have a good work ethic. I look around in this room and I'm looking at the men. And if you're not a student, you're working full time. I'm looking at all of you, all the men here in this room. And to the man, there isn't anybody in here that I doubt has an amazing work ethic. Not any of you. I believe you are amazing examples of work ethic. And that's good, that's good, that's so good. But your responsibility then is to help, or not to just help, but to provide financially, and you set the example of hard work for your children to follow. And it also gives your wife the confidence in the man's desire and ability to make the home safe and to be provided for. But I must remind you, fathers here today, and I am going to stop on this point, that work is changing. Hear me loud right now. In 15 years, 40% of the current jobs will be no longer available for men, or for that matter, women, to work. Why? Automation. I've said this repeatedly through the year. I even started it last year. in 15, how old will you be when you're, 15 years from now, how old will you be? Pauline, how old will you be? Oh, no, better yet. How old will your oldest son be? 15 years from now. How old will he be?
Maybe 20, 25?
25.
And your son, Hari, is 6 or 7, right? 7. So he'll be 22. When your son's 22 years, 40% of industry work in the world will no longer be done by humans. It'll be software. I went into McDonald's outside of Disneyland, and they had 15 big touch screens, and you order your food now, hitting the touch screen, you pay right there. There's no more cashiers. Anything, fathers, listen to me. Anything that is repetitive in nature, that does the same activity, no longer will men and women and teenagers be able to work it. It'll be gone. So Joshua, you and myself, I believe I have a good work ethic to be an example of as well. But it's going to have to go beyond that, because the truth is, automation could replace 40% of the jobs in the next 15 years. So along with the traditional work ethic, now comes the requirement to have skills to make it in a global, connected economy. I don't want you to ever point your finger back and say, Pastor, you never told us about something like that. And if you're a father, you definitely don't want your son or daughter to say, you never told me about that. Does that make sense? And Joshua learned to work, but today, folks, many, many thousands of years later, that's not going to be the only thing that you need to be able to do. I'll read them. I won't even go into them. Next thing Joshua did is Joshua learned to worship. So he served before Moses, before God allowed him to lead. People come up sometimes and say, Pastor, I want to do this. And they're brand new. And I want them to do that. But they haven't attended regularly enough for me to see them and watch them and coach them and help them. That is exactly why, I'm just going to be candid with you. These X number of years that we've been a church, that it's very hard to have Sunday school teachers. It's very hard to have other ministries because the people only come once a week. And some of those people don't even tithe. Workers! If you are faithful in little, you can be then trusted to be faithful with. Joshua learned to worship, but he learned to worship under the tutorage of Moses. He allowed himself to be seen, had the Great Spirit, and I'm pointing out this man, but this man is not who I'm pointing out. I'm pointing out the Spirit. Whatever you need. Bless God, I'm going to tell you something, and I'm not lifting myself up. I'm telling you this because it is one of the big reasons why I am where I am today, and that is whatever you need. Boy, I was a lot younger. 30 years ago, honey, I was a lot younger. But that's the spirit we had, wasn't it, with Brother O'Quinn? Whatever you need, God supplied it. And He saw that I had that spirit. I didn't have many skills. You know the story about building the steps out in the back of the church where the trailer was for the Sunday school kids to come up into the little mobile home trailer we had. Oh my goodness, steps I made were this big. But I made them. They will never learn to be good leaders, men, until we learn to be good followers. As times progress, we will see more women stepping up and more men spiritually sitting down.
Next, Joshua number 5, learn to wait. After